Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this 1995 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. Now I'm excited to review this car for a few reasons. One, it has a V8. Two, has a stick shift. And three, it has T-tops. And it is a very lovely day here in Chicago to drive around with the T-tops off. So let's take a little further look at this Camaro. So as I mentioned, this is the Z28 trim. And with it being a 95, it has the 5.7 liter LT1 OptiSpark V8. So let's actually take a look at that real quick. So let's go ahead and pop the hood. So there's actually quite a bit of history with this car. Before I got near it, it was, I guess, used as a drag car for a little bit. And they must have blown up the engine at one point because the engine only has 60,000 miles on it and the transmission only has 10,000 miles on it. So like I mentioned, this is the 5.7 liter LT1 Chevrolet V8 engine, complete with a K&N cold air intake, which I just noticed got a little boo-boo. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. But yeah, for right now it's mostly unmodified, but I do know it's making more power than it should. Stock, these made about 300 horsepower and about 325 pound-feet of torque. I believe it's making more than that, probably closer to about 350. And so behind it is a 6-speed manual transmission with a short throw shifter, and that is mated to the rear wheels into a limited slip differential. So now let's take a look at our cargo space, and then we'll jump inside and take it for a ride. So on these, you guys might remember I did a review on a 98 Camaro. Trunk releases right here on those cars. On this, it's actually in here. And this one has the funny problem with a lot of these Chevys is it won't shut. So hopefully we get lucky. So we do have a hatchback configuration with a deck here and a deep wall trunk here. Holds a lot of crap. And it definitely gets the job done for a sports car. Let's see if this thing closes. Haha, it closes. All right, so now let's we're actually gonna put the T-tops on real quick so I can crawl into the back of this car. So for anybody that doesn't know how these work, this here is your roof panel. You just slide it in right here, put it down, and then there's a handle on the inside, and you're gonna pull it down, and that locks it in place. We'll go ahead and do the other side real quick. Seat back and close the door. So now let's see if I can crawl in this back seat area. Now we're gonna pop the seat forward, hold the seat belt up, and kind of fall in here. Luckily I'm wearing my smaller shoes, so it's a little bit nicer, but still not favorable. So it's a little bit nicer here because this seat is actually stuck a little bit forward, but there isn't too much room for passengers. It gets a little bit worse once you close the door. Headroom is pretty bad. But that's kind of a Camaro thing, so these weren't, the seats were only put in to help insurance costs, not to exactly, you know, take the kids to school. So now let's do what everybody's been waiting for. Let's take it for a ride. So as some might notice, there's a few missing panels. This is definitely a project car, but it's a rolling project. Some nice crackles out of the exhaust, and we'll go ahead and put our seatbelt on. So one thing I will note is this car does have a short throw shifter, which I personally am not a fan of. I like a little bit of give, but you know, not my car. So go ahead and get on out of here. Let this truck go by us real quick. will say is nice about this car is its first gear is definitely on the taller end. So for cruising parking lots, it's nice. I don't have any complaints out of it. And this engine also has the torque to where if you're doing stop and go, you can leave it in second. So we're actually gonna see, we'll leave the windows open for a little bit just so you guys can hear the engine once I get on a little bit. And there's 60. Put it in 6th, and it gets really quiet actually. It has genuinely surprised me. I've had this car up on the highway about 80 miles an hour in 6th gear, and it's nice. Like, it really doesn't feel that sporty until you get into the curves, until you hit the gas. But otherwise, it's actually not that bad of a cruiser like some other sports cars. The only thing is the ride is a little bit harsher than the other Camaro that I reviewed, and that's because this is the more, you know, race-oriented version of the Camaro, because it's got the V8. The other one had the V6 with the 5-speed stick shift, so that one was a little more cruisy in terms of suspension. But it still goes through the turns pretty well. This is actually a high mileage example of a Camaro. The body itself is sitting at 233,000 miles as of me reading it just now. And so it definitely shows its age, but it still keeps up pretty well in terms of handling and even performance. But performance I'm not worried about. The engine's only got 60,000 miles on it. Yeah, transmission's got only 10,000 miles since it was rebuilt. And my oh my, does it put down some power. I will note though, this is the smallest car that I've done, so I hope the camera work is alright. Same for the audio. Yeah, like I mentioned before, this seat is stuck a little bit forward, and so it's a little bit too far forward for my liking, but for the owner's liking, he says it's perfect. So, you know, I can't argue with the owner of the car. He knows what's best for it, so I just get in the car and I review it. There's one thing that I enjoy doing is getting cars like this that are projects, you know, that might not be in the greatest shape, you know, and I get to show them. I show them to you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the videos. But back to the car, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. So, some history with the Camaro, Camaro in general. It originally came out in, I think it was 1967, to combat the Ford Mustang, which came out in 1964. And so the first generation ended in the early 70s, then came the second generation, and those are known for being very similar to the Pontiac Trans Am that was featured in the Smokey and the Bandit movies. And so then in '82, the third gen Camaro came out, and those were really popular. And then in '93 is when the fourth gen Camaros came out. These were known as, I think, the F bodies. I might be wrong on that. But I know in '93 this body style of Camaro came out, and they came out originally with the 3.4 liter V6 with 5-speed, or you could get the 5.7 liter LT1 V8 with either a 5 or a 6-speed. And so this is the example of a 5.7 liter V8 with the 6-speed, which I will say does perfectly fine. The previous owner has had this car up to 130 miles an hour while running on 7 cylinders, and now that it's running on all 8, is definitely not short on power. I can say that much. Let's see, maybe we'll get past this Jeep really quick. So like I said, it is not short on power. She loves to go, which is what I love to see. But yet, it's still tame enough when you cruise to make it nice to daily drive. It doesn't feel like you drive a race car. You know, it's a race car when you want it to be a race car. It's a cruiser when you want it to be a cruiser. And let's put it this way, with this thing's looks, it's definitely not the cutest thing on the road, I'll say that much. Because I've lived with this thing for a little bit. And it definitely turns some heads, and will definitely have people looking in the rearview mirror at you. And even if you have somebody that's, you know, trying to show off, you know, this thing is faster than a lot of things that are on the road today, so it's definitely not low on power compared to today's vehicles, and to me it rides nicer than a lot of today's vehicles. Granted, it doesn't have as much technology as today's vehicles, but you don't really need all that. This is when cars peak. They had the best design. They had the best design, the best powertrains, and very little driver aids. Now, driver aids are a good thing to an extent. Something like basic ABS and traction control, perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with those. Those can save a life. But once you start getting into electronic stability control, and you know, it becomes to the point where there's so much stuff that can break, any little thing can throw a check engine light. This car has a check engine light, and I didn't even remember it until I looked down at the gauge cluster. Let's go ahead and lower this window again. It's getting a little bit warm. I always try and do my reviews with the windows up to reduce wind noise, but this is not very easy to do in the summertime. One thing I will note about this car is it's decently heavy for being a sports car. Like, if you throw the weight around, you feel it. Because like my probe, you know, I could throw that into a turn and I don't really feel the weight because of how light it is, but this thing, you feel it. Let's see if maybe we can get on this road without getting smashed into or getting my view blocked. That's very helpful, buddy. You are crazier than me, friend. Well, she broke the tires loose. This thing has a tendency to do that. The owner of this car, he just got this fixed yesterday. We threw some new U-joints in it. And he came down the street and he stopped and he popped the clutch and did a standing burnout. Car didn't care one bit. What this school bus is up to. He's just sitting there with his blinker on. One thing I do want to note though is, while this thing is a good cruiser, I would not recommend it for heavy stop and go traffic. Reason being is the clutch is kind of heavy and the gears are kind of tall, so it can get a little bit tiring to be slipping the clutch for an extended period of time, but it's doable. Man, behind me I got a, looks like an old school Toyota pickup with a camper on it. Looks nice. It's even got a light bar on the hood. Luckily, I'm not driving in that traffic today. I'll be staying here. Actually, I'll be going back over there. Thanks. Gotta check those blind spots. It's a must around here. We got people that they barely even know what they're doing. Who knows if they even have a license? So you always gotta be mindful. One thing I'll never stop hearing is horns. I just heard somebody honk at somebody else. Alright. I daily drive a 5-speed, and it takes a minute to actually adjust to getting back into a 6-speed or getting back into my 5-speed, because I drove this yesterday for a test drive, and you know, it's got 6-speed, and I'm one to hypermile. I like to keep my RPMs low, so I had it in 6th. And this morning I ran some errands, and granted I was tired, but I ran some errands in my car, which is a 5-speed, and I was on the highway doing about 55 and was in 5th and went for a 6th gear. For some reason, instead of like really trying to go for a 6th gear, I must have like loosely pushed the shifter down and ended up in 4th, and it kicked up the RPMs. Oh, it's not a 6-speed. And I was like, you know, I just thought to myself, you know, I think I'm a little bit tired. But yeah, that's one thing that I will say took a little bit getting used to when I first started driving this car, is the fact that it does have a 6-speed, because the majority of vehicles that I drive are 5-speeds. I will note, this whole video, I have not had this car to the floor. Like, I think the highest I've gotten is maybe 3/4 down, but this thing has so much power that you don't have to push it any further. It'll go. This is one of those cars that it will scare you. Even if you know it, it will scare you. That's just because it has so much power. Especially getting out of my little Ford Probe, you know, it's about 100 horsepower right now. You know, it's quick on its feet, but it's nothing like this car. Because this car is heavy and fast. And so it definitely takes a little bit of a nerve to really get it, you know, to really have it do what you want. this guy knows, you can take this turn at about 60. We're doing about 35. He's probably not familiar with this road. Not a lot of people are. This is kind of one of the hidden gems of the more exterior parts of Chicago. So if you notice where all the black tire marks are, where it's just completely black, this is actually where they tend to do street racing. And that's actually why I chose this area, because this car is definitely one for the street races. It's got the power, it's got the reputation. It'll street race like no tomorrow. I don't know what this guy's doing, but we are going back to where we started, so we're gonna close out the video and you know, maybe take these T-tops off. It's a little bit toasty here. We're gonna let this car cool off a little bit. Yeah, some of you might actually recognize I was here with the other Camaro. This to me is actually a really good spot for car reviews, because it's got a little bit of turns, nice area to walk around the car, and you know, a lot of long highway, you know, driving, as you could say. Let me roll these windows down, let it cool off in here while I do my little walk around. There we go. Another thing too that I've never understood with these Camaros is this little button. I think that's just to keep it to where you can't lock the wheel while you're rolling, which I guess makes sense. It gets a little bit annoying sometimes. Well, that'll be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the comments. I love to interact with you guys. Just like I said, questions, comments, you know, let me know. If you guys have, if there's anything I missed on this car, let me know. I love criticism. I've had people on my Grand Marquis video mention like, well, actually, this, you know, these cars made this amount of power, and you know, I won't be offended. I'm more than happy to learn from my viewers, because I know some of my viewers learn from me, so it's kind of a win-win situation. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.